Okay, we're talking about Fear and Trembling, Kierkegaard's Fear and Trembling, written by Johannes de Silencio, not the person of faith, but the person of resignation. And this is a big, let's just get to the heart of it right here, and then we'll move. We'll summarize it right here in this video, and then we'll move out from there and start filling it in. Okay, the way Kierkegaard is thinking of faith in Fear and Trembling is in terms of a dialectic. Remember, he's interested in the Hegelian system, but he hates the dialectic resolving in the Aufhebung, in the conceptual Aufhebung, that is, right? Rationally. For Kierkegaard, the dialectic is resolved in a passion. I think he even says it at the very end in the text quoted here. Yes, faith is a marvel. This is on page 101. Faith is a marvel, and yet no human being is excluded from it, for that which unites all human life is passion, and faith is a passion. Okay, so he's thinking in terms of Hegel. He's thinking of faith in terms of a dialectic, or a back and forth, or a tension. Dialectic means back and forth, dialect, fum, right? Kant used the term dialectic to talk about reason spinning on its, spinning out of control, really. So the spinning of faith, or the movement of faith, okay. And of course, there is a thesis, an antithesis, and a synthesis. Not to use, Hegel didn't use those terms, but they're helpful as a heuristic, I guess. Okay, and the dialectic goes like this. Finite, infinite, or particular, universal, or temporal, eternal, finite, infinite, resolution of the two. Okay, what does that mean? So, he thinks the dialectic of faith is a synthesis, if you will, and the synthesis contains both, but is different than both. Okay, first he says what faith is not. First thesis, the finite. Faith is not naive faith. It doesn't look at the impossible, and it doesn't go, oh yeah, God will work it out. I have no, I know, in other words, Abraham didn't say, yeah, I'll sacrifice Isaac. No tension, just, yeah, God will give him back. There was tension there. Think of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? What is Jesus doing? He's saying what he wants from God. Please let this cup pass, but not mine, but yours be done. There's tension there, okay? He gives the example, Kierkegaard, in the text of a naive young girl who thinks she's going to marry Prince Charming and just doesn't even think about it. She's deluded, in other words. So faith isn't a delusion where you think everything's going to work out. You don't even pause to consider the ridiculousness of faith. Kierkegaard's very big on being struck and injected with the irrationality and absurdity and anxiety of faith. Anxiety is a key component to faith, or a necessary step to faith. So faith, in the first sense, is number one of the first stage in the dialectic. Faith is, there's naive faith, and that's not what true faith is. That's not what the knight of faith has, okay? So that's having to do with the finite, number one. Number two, the infinite. And that is where Kierkegaard gets into this really interesting idea, which I've never heard anybody really talk about before, namely the knight of infinite resignation, or resignation, or infinite resignation. And there he talks about it in different ways. He talks about leaping from the finite into the infinite, right? And the knight of infinite resignation loves God, right? And hands everything over and submits to God. It's a very popular idea, a very common idea, or maybe the heart of Islam, where Islam means submission. You submit to God and you have peace. T.S. Eliot says, in his will is our peace. Think of Socrates at his death scene in the Phaedo. What does he do? Everybody else is weeping. He goes, don't weep for me, I got it. And they give him the pharmacon, the hemlock, and he drinks it. And he says, we owe an offering to Asclepius. And then he dies, right? No tension there. He's happy to die. He doesn't care, right? That's infinite resignation. When you say, whatever, I don't care. You resign. You hand over your will, okay? Buddhism, kind of the same way. Desire, you kill desire, right? Stoicism, you kill desire. You just want what is, right? So it moves to the infinite. It resigns. It makes the leap, okay? And Kierkegaard says when somebody's in resignation, they look a little off. They're a little off. They're in the infinite, right? They don't make the leap back to the finite, i.e. the synthesis in the Aufhebung, the aconceptual Aufhebung, right? So here we have the first stage, naive faith, where you don't feel the tension. Second stage, you feel the tension, you let it go, and you go, whatever God wants. Now the third stage, which is the synthesis of the two in the dialectic of faith, the knight of faith, which believes because it's absurd, or believes in the absurd, believes in the impossible. Namely, you're going to get what you want, even though it's crazy, right? That the Messiah would be crucified and he's going to rise again on the third day, right? Or that Abraham's going to kill his son and he's going to get him back, or that Regina's going to come back. In other words, real faith for Kierkegaard is your will in tension with God's will, right? Israel, one who strives with God. Think of Jesus in the garden. God, please, I sweat in drops of blood. Look, I don't want this. But if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. In other words, there's a tension there. So this, the knight of faith, makes the leap and then sticks the landing, comes back to the finite, right? Knows and believes that you're going to get what you want, right? Because there's this tension in the Bible where, isn't this interesting? This is a very interesting tension that it's not resolvable. C.S. Lewis, I just recently read an article that C.S. Lewis wrote, where he says you have two different modes of prayer in the Bible. You have petition God, ask God for what you want. Jesus says, ask and you'll receive, seek and you'll find, knock and the door will be open, right? Constantly, everything by, don't be anxious for anything, but everything by prayer and petition, make your request known to God. Cast your cares on him. Let in other words, ask God for things. On the other hand, a very famous passage, one of my favorites, 1 John 5, I think it's 20, I'm not sure, 1 John 5, which is a great book in general you should read. Kierkegaard's gloss on 1 John 3:20 is fantastic. 1 John 5 says, this is the confidence we have before God, that whatever we ask for according to his will, we know he's going to hear us. In other words, ask for stuff according to God's will and he's going to hear you. God knows what you need before you ask, Jesus says in Matthew 6, right? In other words, just go right to the will of God and you'll get what you want. Aha. But both of those strands are in tension in the New Testament, in the Bible in general. Petition God, but ask for God's will. But doesn't God grant specific prayers? Yes, he does. So you get the exact example of Jesus in the garden. So it's great to contrast Jesus with Socrates. I love Socrates, but Socrates merely resigns himself. Jesus, the knight of faith, or Abraham, says, I know I'm going to kill Isaac. God wants me to do it. I don't want to do this. You know what? Killing him to do it. He gives up Isaac, and then he gets him back. Now, of course, God didn't ask him to do it, but it might as well have done it because of the tension that he was going through, okay? So that's the dialectic of faith. Naive faith, now in the finite, makes the leap into the infinite, resigns, Socrates, Buddhism, Stoicism, whatever. Real faith, the knight of faith, comes back, and that the key thing that ties all of this together is wanting back. So think of it this way. When you pray, this is the best way to understand it, you pray both for what you want and God's will, in tension. That's what Kierkegaard is saying is real faith. And this looks nuts, and it's not comprehensible to reason, okay?